This family was happily taking a family portrait, but behind the photographer sat a black boy who had been adopted. The mother insisted on including the boy in the photo despite the father's objections. Mike was a little surprised, so he stood awkwardly behind Mrs. Toohey. The moment the photographer pressed the shutter, this big black boy felt the warmth of a family for the first time. Mike had just turned 16. He was already nearly 2 meters tall and weighed over 300 pounds. One of his feet was bigger than a girl's head. He had always been a loner because his mother was an unstable person. Having never met his father, he had been drifting his whole life. For years, he was like a football, tossed around by more than a dozen foster families. That night, he once again heard his foster parents yelling loudly. They scolded him for eating too much and even told him to get out. But in truth, those foster parents only took him in to scam government subsidies. Mike had long grown used to wandering. When he was hungry, he would pick up leftover popcorn, and when he was tired, he would sleep in the school gymnasium. Everything changed when Mrs. Toohey showed up.
What is he wearing? It's freezing. What's his name again?
Big Mike.
Her husband rolled down the car window and asked where he was going. Shivering from the cold, Mike said he was heading to the gym, but Mrs. Toohey noticed he was walking in the opposite direction and couldn't bear it, because everything Mike owned was stuffed into a plastic bag. So she caught up to him and asked why he had lied.
You said you were going to the gym. School gym's closed. Why were you going to the gym?
Because it's warm.
Do you have any place to stay tonight? Don't you dare lie to me.
Mike looked like a child who had been caught doing something wrong. Mrs. Toohey instantly saw through his humble stubbornness. She turned back to glance at her husband and son, and in that moment, she made up her mind, because the guest room was full of clutter. Mrs. Toohey had no choice but to let Mike spend the night on the sofa. She told him that if he needed anything, he could come upstairs to find her. But as soon as she got back to her room, she began worrying about taking Mike in out of kindness. Because Mike was a black boy from the slums, she feared he might do something inappropriate. It wasn't until the next morning, when she nervously walked downstairs, that she discovered Mike had already left early and had folded the sofa blankets and bedding neatly. The sight left her frozen on the spot. She felt ashamed of her own suspicions, so she ran outside to ask Mike to stay for another day.
Where are you going?
I don't know.
Are you spending Thanksgiving with your family?
She prepared a table full of food. Her daughter even took the initiative to hand Mike a plate, but he was afraid of being judged for eating too much. After serving himself a small portion of fried rice and vegetables, he quietly took a small piece of bread. While everyone lounged on the couch, watching the game and eating, Mrs. Toohey suddenly noticed that only Mike was still sitting at the dining table, seriously eating his Thanksgiving meal. So she turned off the TV and asked everyone to come to the table for a pre-meal prayer. Her daughter reached out her hand without a moment's hesitation. Her son quickly signaled Mike as well. Mike froze in that moment, because it was the first time someone had ever reached out to hold his hand, and Mrs. Toohey was deeply pleased, because it was Mike who had made this Thanksgiving truly meaningful. She looked Mike up and down, feeling like something was missing, so she suggested taking him out to buy some new clothes. But Mike, feeling insecure, firmly refused. He said he already had clothes and didn't need new ones, so they arrived at the black neighborhood where Mike used to live. But at that moment, he noticed a few thugs eyeing Mrs. Toohey.
Let's go get him.
Don't get out.
Who's gonna help you carry your clothes, Michael?
Don't get out the car.
Mrs. Toohey looked out the car window and saw the thugs leering at her with bad intentions, making crude jokes at Mike's expense. Mike ignored them completely and walked straight toward his mother's house. But as he got closer, he realized the house had been repossessed by the court. He sat sadly in the corner by the wall, his eyes slowly welling up with tears, because he knew he'd been abandoned once again. Since they couldn't retrieve Mike's clothes, Mrs. Toohey decided to buy him some. After browsing through the store, she still wasn't satisfied. There were so few clothes in Mike's size. Mrs. Toohey picked out a few pieces for Mike, but he said he didn't like any of them. In the end, he picked up the cheapest one.
That's the one. That's the one you want. All right.
The next day, Mrs. Toohey heard from one of the teachers at school that Mike had listed their family as himself emergency contact. She smiled knowingly at the news. She also learned that Mike's academic performance was among the lowest in the state, but in one area, he ranked in the top 2% statewide. His instinct to protect. At the time, Mrs. Toohey hadn't yet realized that Mike had exceptional talent in a particular sport. That rare gift would one day change his life forever. To help Mike keep improving, her son personally began training him. At first, they thought her son was just playing around, but he seriously said not to let everyone down. Mike never once thought of giving up. Their bond grew increasingly close. As Mike became more and more integrated into the Toohey family, rumors eventually reached Mrs. Toohey's ears. At one gathering, her friends openly made fun of Mike, saying he looked like King Kong and that a single meal from him could bankrupt her husband's restaurant. Mrs. Toohey just smiled and let it pass, but the arrogant women only grew bolder.
What will your daddy say? Before or after he turns over in his grave? I don't need y'all to approve my choices, but I do ask that you respect them. You have no idea what this boy's been through, and if this is going to become some running diatribe,
We didn't, really.
I think what you're doing is so great. To open up your home to him, honey, you're changing that boy's life.
no. He's changing mine.
Her daughter unexpectedly saw Mike getting along well with little girls at school, which revealed a gentle side of him she hadn't seen before. When other students were afraid to sit with Mike, she was the first to step forward and sat beside him, ignoring the judgmental stares. That night, Mike approached Mrs. Toohey and told her he wanted to get a driver's license. Mrs. Toohey was confused, but Mike explained that he simply wanted an ID that could prove who he was. So they went to the local office to inquire, but found that Mike's name wasn't in the system at all. So after going through a series of complicated procedures, Mike was finally legally made part of the family. After he got his license, his adoptive dad gave him a car. Overjoyed, Mike took his brother out for a drive, but they got into an accident at an intersection. Want to know what happens next? Follow me. The rest of the story is coming soon.